Greetings, cultivators worldwide. Jordan River here, back with more GrowCast, doing the podcast rodeo. Today we have Brandon Rust back on the line. He's here to talk about a bunch of stuff he's been working on. His breeding projects with the Afghan Bullrider and the Blueberry TrainMac. Talks about some of his products, talks about nutrient dynamics, and some new resources that he'll be dropping on the website and on the Patreon. So stay tuned for that. I know you're going to love today's episode with Brandon. Before we jump into it, though, shout out to AC Infinity. That's right, acinfinity.com. Code GrowCast15 gets you savings on all sorts of products, including the brand new AC Infinity Terraform. That's right, this is a AC heater humidifier combo, and it's an amazing unit that'll help you adjust your grow however you need. Use code GrowCast15 at AC Infinity today to grab whatever you need. They've got grow kits that can get you started growing, add another tent to your setup, lickety split. I love those grow kits. It's a really great deal to just get a whole new space. It comes with everything you need, the lights, the pots, the fans, the filters, everything you need is all in there, and you can even use code GrowCast15. AC Infinity's been making the best inline fans in the game for a long time, but now they offer all sorts of wonderful products to growers, from protective garden wear to sunglasses to plant pots to trimming scissors. Like I said, tents, lights, filters, fans, it's all there. They even have the refillable filter that is reusable. I love that. That's at acinfinity.com, plus their new Terraform, which will help you get your environment on point. Find it all at acinfinity.com. And when you go, use GrowCast15. Helps them, helps us, helps you save. I appreciate you guys. Thank you to AC Infinity. Shout out one more time, GrowCast15 at acinfinity.com. All right, let's get into it with Brandon Rust. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in again today. Before we get started, as always, I urge you to share this show. Turn someone you know who's growing onto GrowCast, or turn a smoker onto growing. It's the best thing you can do to help us on our mission of overgrow. Make sure you're subscribed, growcastpodcast.com. There you'll find everything. The episodes, the classes, the membership, the seeds. It's all there. Special thank you to the members out there for making this possible. Today we have an old friend of the show, a fan favorite. Really excited to get him back on the line and give us an update about his breeding work and his nutrient work and all the collabs he has going on. We have Brandon Rust from Bokashi Earthworks back on the program. What's up, Brandon? How have you been, man?
Oh, I've been good. How are you?
Excellent. Doing excellent. Keeping an eye on what you've been doing with, your Rust Brandon page with Bokashi Earthworks. You've been all over the place, man. Rocking some collabs, some breeding projects, some nutrient projects, working with cultivators. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for making time for us. And we're very excited to have you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's always good to be back here on the GrowCast. I think we've, done several episodes in the past, and it's always great to share.
Man, they like to hear from you. So that's what we're diving into today. Now, it's funny. I took a poll with the members. What do you want to hear Brandon talk about on this next episode? Literally 50-50 split between breeding and nutrient work. Like, I thought we were going to glean some information. I guess that's actually good news for you. It means people are equally interested in your endeavors. That's some good data. But it was funny. I decided to do both. Why not do both? I want to get an update on what you're working on with a couple of different lines that you're working down with your breeding projects, get an update on your grow, how that's going, and then also your work in nutrient dynamics and some new charts that you're producing. This is going to be a really good episode. But let's start with the breeding. You have been working on this Afghan Bullrider. You've talked about it on this show a little bit, but I know now you're like deep in the project. It's already created, I believe. Tell us the story of the Bullrider, like what Afghan means to you, and now this project that you're working on.
Well, so there's a distinction that has to be made first and foremost between Bullrider and Afghani Bullrider, because those are two different cannabis varieties. So the original Bullrider, some say that it has been around since, the late 70s or the early 80s. I know that in the mid 90s or early 90s, my friend Hopper, who was the road manager for the Cottonmouth Kings, he also had one of the first dispensaries in San Diego when it was to under 215, under Prop 215. And he acquired it. Well, he didn't acquire it, but his friend Rex and his friend Mike Gerbo got a cut from the Lakeside Rodeo is what the story goes. And they got it from, I think, somebody who ran this black guy that ran like a rodeo circuit. And they acquired the cut and they branded it Bullrider. I don't think anybody actually knows what it was pre them turning it into a brand, but they turned it into a brand. So it was one of the first early things to come out of San Diego that was one like attached to legacy growers that was like branded and marketed, at t-shirts and all kinds of stuff like that. It was really popular. Then in 2001, my mentor and the guy who showed me how to grow weed crossbred that original Bullrider into an Afghani that he got from our friend Mohead Red, who's now passed away. Out of what they ran through, they kept two different varieties, A and B pheno. And I can't remember which one that we constantly grew, but we only, I think, ended up keeping one of them after a little while. We gave different cuts out to different people, but there was a whole circle of us that was growing that Afghani Bullrider probably from about 2001 to really heavily until probably about 2009.
Wow.
And then even into about 2011, some people were still growing it. But, I have some Afghani Bullrider. I had a friend of both my mentor and myself had some of the original seeds that he was given to him. And so we had popped some of those and we found something that was almost identical to what we had before. And so I used that in a Black Lime Reserve cross.
Ooh.
I've already made those seeds, but I didn't release anything. I'm not going to release the F1s. I'm going to run through them and release some cuts out of there. Like I actually just listed some cuts on my Bokashi Seed Vault website of some Afghani Bullrider times Black Lime Reserve. But I'll release seeds in the future after I work the line because the ones that I tested so far were just all over the place. So I have to do
Sure.
hunt and narrow down the selection, and it might take a little while to get to like what I'd be looking for out of those two lines combined.
Wow, man.
The one now is great. I really love it. It's really fast and vigorous. It's very resinous, and it smells like sweet candy, fermented fruit, and like tangerine grapefruit.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing! And what a treat to be able to find something that resembles your strain from the past. That's what you're saying, right? Like you have this reminiscent old school version, and this modern one that you've popped and hunted now resembles that nostalgic version. That's amazing.
No, I mean it's different from the parent, from the mother, the Afghan Bullrider, but I mean I still have that variety around, so I'm not trying to replace it. I was just using genetics because
Got it.
it's a very robust and like vibrant, like loud terpene profile. So it definitely translates that over. It's got that going for it. So that's a little thing that I actually just, that was kind of a happy accident. It was a volunteer, some seeds that I dropped while I was harvesting the seeds, when I was harvesting the plant. And so I ended up growing it outdoor. It's still flowering outdoor, but when it was in veg, I took cuts, vegged those out. And this was early in the season, put them indoor to test it. And then now I have a full bed of it running.
That's awesome, man. Out of a volunteer plant?
Yeah, it was dude, it's fire. It's super, super fire. It was like 15 feet tall when it stopped growing. It flowers fast. It's super resinous. I don't think it would be good for half making, but it's a beautiful plant.
Man, people love those types of stories. We just had another volunteer plant story recently on the show, so that is so funny. That's why you never kill those volunteers, right? Let them grow up, see what comes out of them, and then you have a really good story. You found a keeper that was just a happenstance.
Yeah, and what I did early in the season was I took 3 clones just to make sure I had, backups if one of them didn't root. And then all 3 of them rooted. I planted one in the ground. I flowered one out in the indoor flower room. And then I held one back to veg. And then after I saw what it did in the test pot in the indoor, I was like, dude, this is fucking awesome. I was just doing it to see if it was male or female, but since it was female, I just let it run and I was really happy.
There you go, man. Everyone loves that type of story. Okay, but you have this F1 generation. You're holding the seeds back because there is such expressive diversity. You've got a clone release from that F1 line. That's awesome, by the way. You can find that at BokashiEarthworks.com. Is that right?
Actually, it's BokashiSeedVault.com.
Ah, there you go. The genetic site, BokashiSeedVault.com. Okay, glad I clarified. Of course, BokashiEarthworks.com, your primary site. Code GrowCast available there, and members getting an additional discount. So thank you for that, Brandon. But
Yep.
You're going to work them a little bit further, try to narrow down that expressive gene pool into a little bit more consistency. What are you aiming for before you're satisfied with the release?
With this project, I just was testing it. I just wanted to see, or I was just testing this volunteer that came out. I had run some previously too, like, I don't know, months back. And I didn't really have a idea in mind of what I was even looking for. I was just testing it because that's what I like to do. It's not even a project that's on the forefront right now. It just happened to be that clone, that female plant was super fire. So I kept it around and I'm like, doing a larger production on it in beds. So it's kind of on the back burner. I'm just growing it out for personal smoke because I really liked it. I liked the effect. It was stimulating and then sleepy later on. Great terpene profile, tasted good. So I just liked everything about it.
That's great.
The main project that I'm working on right now is that Blueberry TrainMac F2s. Even though I did make F3s with a crinkle cut with a pheno that I found in a prior hunt, my goal is to do 4 full hunts, different hunts over the course of the year, select different phenos out of every single hunt, and then run all of those after all the hunts are done together and compare and contrast and do selections for more F3s, F4s, and so on.
That sounds amazing. The crinkle cut. This is the one that I've heard about, right? Your Blueberry TrainMac, which I got to try an early iteration of. I don't know if you remember when we were sitting in Oklahoma. No, it was here in Chicago. And it was one of your tester growers. You gave me a bud of the Blueberry TrainMac. We were sitting in a car, and that was an early iteration of that. And it was really, really impressive. Now, you later posted about this crinkle cut. Is that the same one that had a very pungent, skunky aroma?
No, so that is...
Oh, it's different.
Yeah, so there was, out of the first round, I picked 2 cuts. They were totally distinctly different. The crinkle cut, it smells like vanilla, blueberry, cupcake, and like musky rosemary,
Oof.
lemon.
Oof. That was closer to what I tried. A really bright, so it leans on that sweeter side. Different than the skunk cut. Okay.
Yeah, the skunk cut is like a really pungent, acrid rosemary sage that really translates into, it really smells skunky. But if I was to define it as like what it was, it'd be like a combination of sage and rosemary where it has this, but with this acrid like sharpness to it that neither of those plants have.
Sure. Yeah. That's the skunkness. Well, that sounds incredible, man. Is that, which one is your favorite?
They're both good enough for me to want to keep them around. They're both different. I really love the sweet, creamy vanilla blueberry with the rosemary and lemon. I mean, it's just a beautiful profile, especially when it's like balanced out perfectly. But I also like that really nasty, pungent, acrid one too. So I couldn't really choose between the two. That's why I just kept both of them. I found some other ones that are different. These F2s are all over the place. I found one number 14 cut, and that one, it hasn't been harvested yet, but that one smells more like sweet sourdough and hot dog water terps.
Hot dog water? Get out of here. Actual hot dog water terps?
Yeah, it smells like hot dog water.
Dude, people will point out to me that I have some bizarre descriptions for smells. I'm not sure I've heard hot dog water before. I do like a good meaty terp, though. I know that category of terpene.
Yeah. Then I have another one that's very fruity and very hashy. Like it smokes and it tastes, it's smooth, but it tastes like you're smoking traditional hash.
I love that. That's like some of my favorite type of, yeah, that hash plant type profile. It's really, really delicious. Man, yeah, you got to keep us updated on those. That's cool that you're going to release clones from the F1 of the Afghan, and then now you've got these two legendary clones of the Blueberry TrainMac. You're going to have a stable before you know it to work with. Any fems, or do you only do regs?
I built a tissue culture lab at the Bokashi Earthworks office
Oh,
and
oh,
just waiting on the landlord to send back a signature with an amendment to the lease, giving me permission to have a hemp license there. And I should have a hemp license hopefully within a month.
wow. What have you learned learning tissue culture, and how has it changed your, I don't know, like your view of storing genetics and the abilities that tissue cultures unlock?
So the fundamentals of what you do is really basic and easy. You just have to be very patient and precise because you're looking at plant tissue under a microscope and you're trying to take out a little sphere, a little cell that's all covered in these tiny, tiny leaves, these microscopic leaves that you have to unfold. That's the hardest part doing the meristem tissue culture. The micropropagation isn't so hard. It's like taking clones that are, 6 or 7 millimeters. It's not
Right.
very big, but it's just like taking a tiny little clone where you're basically just doing surface sterilization and then you're putting it at a root. And once it roots, you can transplant it into something else. That way you just know it's sterile. And that's not going to clean it up from viral pathogens if they're systemic.
What is your primary goal with it then? If you're not using it for cleaning up your genetics, are you just looking to store a variety?
Yeah. So if I need to clean something up or if I'm uncertain, even if the thing like with hop latent viroid, it has this latency that it won't express itself and a test could come back negative, but it could still be infected.
Wow.
And so there are different varieties of hop latent, and some of them have higher infection rate and they're less detectable, but they might be doing less overall damage, or they might not be expressing a lot of symptomology. And there are some that are harder to spread that are more viral in nature and they have a greater capacity to express mutations in the plant.
So you see them.
So if I had something that needed to be cleaned up, or if I had any doubts, I'd do meristem tissue. If I thought that the plant was good and I wasn't worried about it, I might just do micropropagation, and that allows me to just put things on ice, so to speak.
Whoa.
So I have it in a library, but I don't have to worry about keeping a mother plant or constantly cloning all the time to keep that genetic alive.
That is awesome.
Also, there's embryo rescue. So old seeds that have trouble germinating, what you can do is you can remove the outer shell and essentially put that embryo inside hormone media, and it'll kickstart that thing and it'll allow them to germinate.
Wow. So if there's any possible life in that seed, it'll get it to grow.
And you can sterilize both the seed coat and the embryo once you open it. So at least you can do surface sterilization. And then if it grows and you're able to start getting it to produce tissue, you can even meristem tissue culture it just to make sure if you needed to. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with it. A lot of it for me will be storage. I'll offer services to people who need genetics cleaned up or need embryo rescue or they just need storage space.
That's really cool, man. But you recommend people, if they're interested, try it and do it? Because it seems like you're saying it's pretty achievable.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is as long as you have an area that's relatively sterile, you can get like a flow hood or a vent hood and, make sure you have alcohol and you have sterile instruments. If you can be sterile and, and do it in front of a vent fan, maybe have a face mask and gloves on, shouldn't be too much of an issue. I mean, I have a lab built out, so it's
Extra
constantly
easy.
cleaned and dusted and it's all stainless steel tables and everything. So
That's cool that you're so deep into tissue culture cloning. I look forward to seeing what you use that for and all the different services you offer. You have a run going right now, you mentioned. No? I think I saw a bed packed out with some of your genetics that you said you weren't going to run a veg cycle on. You want to talk about what you're growing now?
Yeah, so that's actually the Afghan Bullrider Time Black Lima Reserve.
That's right.
I loaded it up sea green style. So what I did is when I cloned, some of them stayed in the cloner, and I just put a little bubbler under, kept some water and some nutrients in there, and let them just get big old roots before I transplanted. And some because I didn't have enough in cups, but I had these little cups, not the big beer ones, but the size smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I put them in there just to get established in a little bit of soil while my bed was finishing off, because my timing was like, I don't know, probably like 5 days off. And so I let the plants get established in the cups. About, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them were just in the clone trays with bubblers, and they started growing that way, like kind of aeroponically. And then when I cut my stuff down that I finished, my Lamarilla, my sour cheeseberry, I replanted everything immediately that night and put 25 in a 3x3 with no veg time on it, just straight into the bed. They looked like just regular clones. They were probably all about 8 or 9 inches each.
So they were a little bit bigger when they went in, but you're throwing them right onto 12-12, no problem?
Yeah, I top dress amended some nitrogen, some calcium amendments. I'm waiting tomorrow. I should have my results back from Logan Labs, where I send my soil samples, because what I do is after every run, I should have sent it in a week earlier, but I was like in a rush. And what I do is I take a sample out, send it to the lab. They tell me how much nutrients are in my soil and the solubility of those nutrients. And then based off of that data, I top dress reamend with whatever it is that needs to be put in there. And it allows me to, just maintain nutritional sufficiency in that media. And so I'm just running that bed. I'm sure they'll finish probably around, 2.5, 3 feet.
Sure.
Nice solid beds and everything. Should be
Wow.
a nice run.
What's that spacing like if you're going to do no veg time? And I know this is cultivar dependent. I know that for a fact, but you're pretty familiar with these Afghans.
Yeah, well, so what I did was they're clones, they're untopped clones, and I did, I think, 3 or 4 nodes at the very top, and they're small. They're only, again, they were clones when I put them in there. And so there's 25 in a 3x3 area. So 5 divided by 3 feet. I don't know what that is.
There's 25 plants in a 3x3 area?
Yes.
Wow.
And they're untopped, and then I trimmed everything up. I basically swazzed them just to the very top. So they're just going to grow out the tops and fill out that canopy. And the whole thing is getting the yield without having to do any veg, right? And here's the idea, right? I can do this on a small scale, but I can also do it on a large scale. And when you're doing it at large scale, it means that you're saving a ton of money, right? Because of the water usage, the electricity, the labor, the nutrients, and the time, the veg time that they're exposed to pests and pathogens. Those are all factors that have an overall effect. If you take really nice, healthy clones from really nice, healthy moms, and you dip them before you plug them, and then you dip them again after they're rooted, and then you put them into the media for maybe 3 to 5 days just to get established, and then you flip, then you can have fast turnarounds while decreasing your resources, and your cost of cultivation. And then also on the flower side, since the plants aren't massive, you're not removing, 2/3 of the plant, which is kind of a waste. You go through all this veg time to build all this biomass, and you go into flower and you remove it all. And some people will argue, oh, well, now you can do under canopy lighting. And it's like, well, you don't have to do any of that if you do it like this. If you do this type of style, it makes it more efficient because you're not going to have to remove a bunch of biomass. The cleanup is going to be quick, efficient, and easy. It's not going to take much time. And then you're not going to have to do it again either. Like, you're not going to have to go back at day 21 and fucking remove more shit and stuff like that. It's just more efficient overall.
I think that method is a really good idea. And like you said, super, super efficient. So I'm excited to see how that finishes out.
Well, we're setting up a 2,000 lighter in California, and it's going to be done just like that.
How many plants if you're doing 25 plants in your 3x3, how many plants are you going to put under 2,000 lights?
A lot.
I mean, if your propagation technique is efficient and cost effective,
you just need clone space,
yeah,
directly into your flower rooms. And I didn't do any veg on mine. If I didn't already have plants in there flowering, I would have done maybe 3 days, let them get a little bit established before flipping. But today will be day 4. I'll have my Rex back tomorrow, and I'll do some more top dress cementing. That'll be it for that, and it's ready to go.
That's really cool. Front load that calcium, I'm sure. Huh? I've been listening.
Did that. I mean, I always re-amend with calcium. Even like I know instinctively kind of what is going to need to be done. So I went ahead and added the base amounts of what I thought would be, and anything that I need to add, I'll just add that as extra, and then adjust the micronutrient levels. That's the only thing that I didn't do.
So you threw in the Calcil is what I'm assuming. But I know you've got a bunch of different products, right? You've got some product collabs. You've got some genetics collabs. You want to talk about that? Your work with Green Bodie and Yellow Wolf and Mama Wolf?
Yeah, so John is a friend of mine, Green Bodie, and he is another breeder and grower. He does organic cultivation. He was looking for products for his grow. And so I was like, hey, I have some stuff that you might be interested in, slow release, agglomerated organic nutrients. Sent them to him. He tried them out, really liked it. His plants are always beautiful. And so we did a little collaboration on some nutrients, which is the Green Bodie top dress veg and flower nutrients. That's on the Bokashi Earthworks website. We're also doing a seed collaboration. There's going to be 100 packs of 2 different varieties, which is Afghani Bullrider times Hazy Girl, and then Afghani Bullrider times 89 NL Northern Lights.
Nice.
And so that's coming up pretty soon. The nutrients are already available, but the seed, we're just working on all the packaging. We have special packaging, rolling papers, all kinds of little stuff that's going with it.
That's fun.
And then the Mama Wolf, which is Yellow Wolf's mom, I'm doing the breeding for their cannabis brand. And then I'm also connecting them with different cultivators that I work with throughout the country to do like branding and marketing, to where it's like Mama Wolf Kush. They'll be cultivating a certain variety that I've hunted out for them. And it'll say Mama Wolf Kush, the variety, and then cultivated by whatever farm.
Oh, it's amazing. Using your products? Are these going to be organic lines? Do you know?
Yeah, these are all the people that I've been hooking them up with were all people
Sure.
who use the system. They use my soils and nutrients. And
That's what these influencers and celebrities and rappers, that's what they need to be doing, man, to be honest. That's where they all go wrong, right? They don't go to legacy growers like yourself. A lot of them go corporate. And I think it was really smart for them to team up with you. I've seen the cultivators you work with, man. It's very impressive to do that at scale. You know, like we help home growers at home achieve that. And let's be honest, it's easier when you only have 5 plants to watch after. It's much easier. But you do a really great job out there. And your product freaking works. Your lineup is, I was asking you off air, do you have any developments and additions to your line? And you're like, my line only has a few parts. It's complete. It works great. I'm not really looking to add to it. And I thought that was a very, very revealing and cool answer. So what do you recommend people? Let's say I've got a listener who is like just tuning in let's say they just started growing. They're just tuning in here in Brandon Rust. What is the one product you would have them run out and add to their grow from your line?
Micro Plus, but also the calcium silicas it's basically like amped up CalMag, where it's not going to be too much magnesium where it antagonizes potassium or calcium, but it also has 53% silica and contains iron also. So it's an awesome product. And of course, Micro Plus multifunctional probiotics, cycles nutrients, outcompetes pathogens, has plant phytohormones in it.
Can't go wrong. Magic in a bottle. GrowCast membership, it's where you need to be. If you're a grower, growing should be easy and fun. It should connect you more closely with this amazing plant and with the other members of the community. And that's what GrowCast is designed to do. GrowCastPodcast.com/membership. We make growing easy and fun again. We'll walk your hand through any problems you have. It's like insurance for your grow. Plus, you get access to a ton of bonus content, of educational resources, and even members-only discounts that are going to save you your $15 membership fee back and then some. It's all waiting for you at growcastpodcast.com/membership. Jump into a regional chapter, meet Gromies in your area, and start coming to meetups, trading cuts, trading seeds in the trading bazaar. There's so much going on in the community, you won't believe it. Plus, you can connect directly with me and Mary Beth and Riza Rich and the whole team. We're all waiting there for you right now. We have multiple challenges going on. We have the Grand Pheno Hunt. Of course, somebody's going to win $1,000 for having the winning cut in this amazing community Pheno Hunt. And we have these running on repeat, folks. As soon as this one ends, we're going to start up another one. Shout out to Hygrazyme for sponsoring the Grand Pheno Hunt. They were so impressed with what we were doing for the community that they jumped at the chance to sponsor it. So they are supporting us. We really appreciate them. And now we give away $1,000 to one lucky member who grows the cut that Rich works with. It's the Grand Pheno Hunt. It's just one of the many things that we have going on. We have Bud of the Month competitions. We have a cloning challenge going on. We have an upcycling challenge coming up. You won't believe it. It's all waiting there for you. What are you waiting for? growcastpodcast.com/membership. I will see you there. Go and join today. You will not regret it. We are waiting to take your garden to the next level. growcastpodcast.com/membership. Let me ask you this. Let's get into the nutrient dynamic stuff. A lot of people use gypsum as their calcium source. What are your thoughts on calcium sulfate and why you like calcium better or different?
Well, I also use gypsum. I like gypsum a lot. Calcium sulfate is a little bit different. It does have a higher solubility than calcium silica, but it also has 50% the amount of calcium that the calcium silica does. So the calcium silica has twice as much calcium. It also has the silica. In instances where my sulfur or my sulfate levels are already high in soil, I don't want to add more gypsum because of the 18% sulfate that's in it. Instead, I'll use the calcium silica because I can raise those calcium levels, help balance pH, get the silica in there,
And the sulfate levels, you don't need too much, right? Like if you're looking at total addition, like you said, if you're doing like a Logan Labs type test, sulfur is one of those things where you don't really need super, super high levels like a calcium, right?
So sulfur is very important, especially for oil producing plants, for terpene producing plants. So you want a good amount, but there's kind of sulfur is a double-edged sword because too much will cause osmotic stress and will cause the EC of the media to increase, especially if you're doing drybacks in flower. So
Interesting.
managing your sulfate is really important to help with osmotic water regulation.
This is great stuff, man. This is why I ask these questions. This is great stuff. Now, back to the Microbe Plus. Great explanation on the CalSil. Back to the Microbe Plus. That's your bacteria blend. Why do you love it over other products? Why did you formulate it the way that you did? Tell me something special about Microbe Plus.
Well, I didn't formulate it. It's actually formulated by Dr. Tiro Haiga. I was just fortunate enough to be able to have all of the spores and make mother culture. It's lactic acid bacteria, Bacillus subtilis, photosynthetic bacteria, and fermentive yeast, Saccharomyces. And it's a consortium. And so all of these microbes, they work better together. So they create synergism. And I can give you an example. When yeast is breaking down organic compounds, it produces CO2. A photosynthetic microorganism utilizes CO2 during photosynthesis to create other or complex organic compounds. So the CO2 that's a byproduct of the yeast is then being utilized by a photosynthetic bacteria that's in that same consortium to produce more complex compounds. Those complex compounds are things like organic acids, phytohormones, different types of compounds that are going to have biostimulating properties, or they could be sidiophores, things that chelate and keep micronutrients available, or it could be enzymes that solubilize phosphorus, or enzymes that break down chitin, or it could be a number of different things that, depending on the strain. You have other microorganisms like photosynthetic bacteria that are using that CO2 and they're creating amino acids. And then those amino acids are being utilized by the bacillus bacteria to make lactic acid and acetic acid and antimicrobial compounds that help suppress pathogens. So they work as an engine because they're able to produce compounds that each other can use for growth and reproduction while also producing a wider variety of secondary metabolites. So it's like if you had a bunch of cannabis plants that were all producing different terpenes and different cannabinoid profiles, and then you harvested all of those and then you blended those up into one blunt, the effect would be radically different than if you were just to take one of those varieties and smoke it on its own.
Hell yeah, brother. Don't I know it?
So that's a good analogy on how these microbes work. When you have this specific consortium, they actually function even better. So all of the metabolites, all the compounds that they're producing, they all work synergistically together.
I did not know that the formulation was based on the work of Dr. Teruo Higa, is my understanding.
Tiro Higa. I may be mispronouncing it, but
it could be easy to do that. That was really cool. I was looking into his work, developing stuff to remediate after the soil, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
That's really neat. I did not know that's what it was based on. Very, very cool.
It's not just a soil and plant probiotic, but it's used for bioremediation, waste remediation. It's used in aquaculture, like fish farms, crab farms, shrimp farms. It's used in animal agriculture if they're giving it in water or putting it in food as a multifunctional probiotic for the animals. So it can be used in a wide array of different applications. And because of that, I started to think outside the box, and I was thinking about a movie that I had seen with Jack Black and Ben Stiller called Envy. And Jack Black makes this spray called Vaporize, and it makes dog shit disappear. It just vanishes out of thin air. Now, I can't make dog shit vanish out of thin air, but I can help it decompose exponentially faster and not smell with this same formulation. So we're going to start a new product. It's not a new product, but it's a new packaging that's marketed towards the pet sector. That can be used in cat boxes, can be used in horse manure or cow manure compost piles. It can be used in the backyard where your dog shits, and it'll help decrease overall smells, and it'll help break down that waste material really fast.
That's awesome. I remember what a pull. Envy, the vaporizer, fantastic. And if you could invent that, I mean, you'd be a billionaire. Let's be honest, man. You're a dog owner. But yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome that the microbes are the magical helpers, in this scenario. So I'm excited to load up my outdoor garden this next year with some calcium, some goodness like that. Very, very excited. You sent me some work that you're doing. You've generated these charts. When I say charts, they are going to be created into visual graphics. I know you'll have them done up all nice by your artist, but basically just these learning resources to help you understand nutrient dynamics. I'm looking at a list of macronutrients and micronutrients. And then in this chart, it'll show what their functions are in the plant. It'll show what they synergize with, what they antagonize, different pH ranges. Really cool of you to show this to me here. And listeners, you will, again, see this. If you follow Brandon Rust on Instagram and follow his Patreon, you'll see these when they're all done and made up pretty. This is some really cool information. It's good to deliver this information in a multimedia format like that so people can understand it and digest it. I think people really struggle, Brandon, with antagonizing relationships. I think that's something that people run into that's not just as simple as like, hey, stop overwatering or underwatering. When the balance of their medium gets thrown off or they're using a subpar nutrient line. And there's all these issues. Maybe you can just give a few examples. Have you seen, like consulting with people and working with farms, examples of where something gets out of whack and antagonizes another mineral?
Yeah. So the thing that comes to mind first and foremost is going to be sodium, bicarbonate, and chloride. Those three elements are often found in higher levels in water, and they can compile over time, causing issues over a period of time. And so oftentimes I'll get somebody that's reaching out that's going, oh, my first 3 runs were really great and have any issues. And my 4th run wasn't so good. And now my 5th run is just taking a shit. I can't figure out what's going on. And so what we're looking at is something like sodium. Sodium will block out the uptake of calcium, magnesium, and potassium.
Wow.
Because they all have similar charges. So they can bind onto clay colloids and the surfaces of organic matter, and they compete for those sites. So if you have too much sodium, sodium takes all of those sites up, and then whenever you're watering, that sodium is falling into solution instead of calcium or magnesium or potassium. And so the plant isn't getting proper uptake. That's why they call it an antagonistic relationship.
And this is usually from the water source itself. This is dealing with just shitty water, essentially.
Typically, so as an example, something that just immediately came to mind was water, but also when it comes to sodium and chloride and things like heavy metals, ocean inputs.
So you're watching out for your water quality, and then this is one of the reasons that you don't like to use a lot of sea-based inputs, right? And I know that a lot of people do different styles and will say, I get it from this source or that source, but you're worried about not just heavy metals, you're worried about sodium.
A lot of the inputs that come from the ocean are both going to be high in sodium and chloride because salt is in the ocean, sodium chloride. Now, they're not bonded together as a salt, but they could just be individual ions that are in that. But also, you see a lot of heavy metal contamination. It's very, very common with organic kelp meals, crustacean meals, all those types of different things. And so I just tend to not use them as an agronomist and someone who gives recommendations all the time. It's something I can't trust. And so I just eliminate it altogether because there's other sources that I can use. Most of the things that I do when I add into these systems are mineral based anyway. They are natural minerals, but they're not really organic. Some of these are soluble salts like iron sulfate. It's natural. It's, comes out of the ground, but it is actually, salt.
So the chloride you mentioned goes right along with that. Is that usually where people are getting too much chloride as well?
Yep. Usually from their inputs. Also, you could be getting too much chloride from synthetic nutrients too. If you have things like calcium chloride or potassium chloride as one of the ingredients in that fertilizer, and you're not maybe flushing enough or you're not doing enough volume of water run through, you might be building up that chloride level in that media, and it becomes an issue.
And bicarbonates was the last thing you mentioned. Now, all of these just antagonize a whole host of nutrients. You mentioned a handful. These are the things we got to watch out for the most.
Yeah, bicarbonate does the same thing as sodium. It also drastically increases soil pH or media pH as well. And if you're in hydroponics, you really don't want that because when you have a higher pH, your phosphorus starts binding with calcium and magnesium.
From a home grower perspective, like if we're running a water softener, isn't that adding a ton of sodium to our feed?
Well, you shouldn't really be doing a softener. You need to be testing your water to figure out if there's an issue with it to begin with. I'm lucky enough that my well where I'm at has just great water. Some of the best water I've tested so far, which I'm very lucky. Sometimes it's just a little bit of high sodium. If you just have a little bit of high sodium and everything else is good, you just need a sodium filter. Or you might just need a sediment filter. You might need a RO. You might need special filtration. It just depends on the quality of your water to start with. What determines water quality is what is in that water. How much sodium, chloride, and bicarbonate is in there? How much calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, potassium, boron, copper, zinc? How much of all the nutrients that plant use are actually in that water? And the answer should really be the less is better, because less means that more of those nutrients can fall into the solution when you water or when you're adding something to it. That water will be able to hold on to those ions in solution.
There's more room for the things we want.
Yeah, that's another thing with water. If there's a bunch of stuff in your water, less of what you're putting in there is going to stay in solution and be taken up by the plant through mass flow.
Well, it makes sense that you say that these are common problems because it's coming from like the tap water itself, right? Like obviously people will go overboard with some top dress or some input and they might throw things off, but this just occurs from proper watering. Like you said, maybe you have 3-4 really good runs and then over time this builds up. So
yeah,
important to do that testing, right? That's why you need to get a Logan Labs test. If you're relying on your soil beds, invest that, $60-$70
No, I think it's like $25 for a water test. And you can learn how to interpret one of those tests by going to the very first blog post on the Bokashi Earthworks blog, and it tells you all of the targets that you want to see. And if everything is below those targets, your water's good to go and you don't have to worry about it.
There you go, BokashiEarthworks.com. Check out the education section. I look forward to these charts, man. That's going to be really cool to be able to peruse over those, share those with the community.
Let me just go over them real quick. So what I did is I wanted to do the base fundamentals of soil nutrient dynamics, and some of those things were understanding whether they had a positive and negative charge, what form they were available in, what their primary function was in the plant, what synergistic and antagonistic relationships they have with each other, with optimal pH ranges for each of those individual nutrients, how they are uptaken, if it's mass flow diffusion or root inception, and then the key role in what they do with plant metabolism, and then also for each of those microbial processes that influence the availability of those micronutrients. And then I made the same thing for all of the macronutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and secondary nutrients: calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And so it just gives you all of their charges, all of that information that I just said, and it'll give you the base fundamentals. It's like having good base fundamentals at any sport. Like, you can't progress unless you have all the base fundamentals. And this basically covers all of the things that you would need to know to build a solid foundation on understanding nutrient dynamics.
In poker, we have a range chart. It tells you like what a good hand is based on your position, what a bad. It teaches you the fundamentals essentially. So this is like a soil range chart, as I see it. I'm excited for the drop, man. We were talking about this content and these resources off air a little bit, and I was asking you about different minerals and what you're kind of involved in researching. And one of the things you brought up was iron. I wanted to make sure that we make a little bit of time for iron at the end of the show. You talked about why it's an important limiting factor that you need to make sure that you have addressed. There's a lot of stuff that I've read that's like, oh, iron deficiency is like not that common. But you tell me, is it a deficiency that we run into? What's the importance of iron in the grow?
It's not so much deficiency in the actual soil. It has to do with availability, and it has to do with oxidation and reduction, because what happens is, and pH, right? So iron, ferric iron, which is its available divalent form, which it means it has two positive charges associated with it. It oxidizes very quickly into oxidized iron, which is an unavailable form for the plant. Plant doesn't have great access to it when it's in that form. So it has to be reduced into its ferric form to be available. Now, the problem with that is the pH range of availability is usually around 4.5 to 5.5 is ideal. Now, nobody's cultivating unless you're doing blueberries in pH ranges that are that low. And so that becomes a problem, because when you're at 6.5, the availability of iron decreases, and it decreases, the higher you are to neutral. And so it's not that the limiting factor really is because of the chemistry of iron. However, there are some processes when it comes to increasing the solubility of iron, and there's a couple things that you can do. And one of those things is using different microbes. The trichoderma and the Bacillus subtilis is one of the things that I use in my biocrop steering protocols. And it's not used exclusively for this, but this is one of the main benefits, because that combination of bacteria and fungus together, they work synergistically, and they have the highest percentage of hydroxamate sediaphore production of any microbe that's been studied. And what that is, it is a secondary metabolite that chelates iron and holds it in a biologically available form.
Jeez.
You'll see higher solubility on a saturated paste test with soils that have been inoculated with the trichoderma and the Bacillus subtilis.
That is wild. Is that why you've said this for a while, man? I mean, I'm sure you like fungi and different people's grow, but you say, myco is popular on the market, but I skip it. You always said you do trichoderma and you combine it with Bacillus subtilis. Those are the only two. That's the main microbe kind of base in your soil.
Yeah, so here's the deal with the myco versus trichoderma. So there has been science that shows both synergistic and antagonistic relationships, right?
Mhm.
So it all comes down to the amount of resources, soil hydrology, soil pH, soil structure, temperature, all of those things, and nutrient resource. If everything is in homeostasis, these microbes could potentially play nice together. But once things start going sideways, the more dominant variety will take over for those resources. That's just how it is. That's how it is in nature in any system. Now, I've seen science that shows, trichoderma taking over, but I've also seen it where it works synergistically. Given you have the right resources, they could work synergistically, but I don't care if they work synergistically together because trichoderma does the exact same thing as myco. It works as an endo mycorrhizal. It is systemic. It is an endophyte. So it makes an association with the root. It creates fungal filaments. It transports nutrients. It creates phosphatase. It creates antimicrobial compounds. It does all of the exact same things that endo and ectomycorrhizal fungi do, but the metabolite or the chemical compounds that it produces are a lot more powerful and they have a lot more benefits, especially with the hydroxymate sidiophores, plus the out competition ability of trichoderma is second to none in the myco world. I
It's a good
mean,
IPM on
no,
top of everything.
just absolutely despise trichoderma because just one small contamination can wipe out entire tubs. They could just lose entire harvest because of that microbe. Now, if we're talking about things like leaf septoria or fusarium or botrytis or powdery mildew, those are all fungal pathogens that can just be eliminated, that just are wiped out with the application of this T22 trichoderma. And again, when you're using the Bacillus subtilis with the trichoderma, the bacteria will live on the fungal filaments that the fungus is producing, and they're creating similar metabolites that work synergistically together. So you're getting increased efficiency and efficacy when you add both. And so I just don't see a reason why to spend that much money when you could just do an inoculation one time in veg, once maybe mid at transition, and then once maybe at 3 weeks of flower with the microbes, and be done with it, and just make sure that you're protected from bud rot and PM and all that other stuff.
You've been recommending that for a while, and the proof is in the pudding because your soil does really, really well. So I don't know. I think that's really cool. And it's interesting that it ties into iron, producing the most abundant enzyme, I'm sure, to, like you said, make that iron chemically available. Why is that so important for cannabis specifically? Iron.
Well, most of the media that we're running is these living soils or these modified growing mixes, which are, they're highly porous. So they have really good gas, air, and oxygen and water exchange. And given those conditions, iron oxidizes. So the solubility becomes very low, even if you have a lot of it in your system. And so it's just something that needs to be managed. It is a photosynthetic element. It is responsible for, let's see, I wrote all these things like
You can refer.
photosynthesis and respiration. It's used for chlorophyll synthesis, enzyme functions, and electron transport. So it's got a bunch of functions. It's needed. And, it's just one of those things that I see oftentimes when people are like, I can't figure out what's going on with my plant. And they have like whole plant yellowing.
Mm.
Oftentimes it's iron, and sometimes it could be due to overwatering.
Oh, sure.
That can decrease iron availability and too wet of soils. And just there's a bunch of different factors.
That makes a lot of sense. What you said about the air ratio oxidizing iron, and then maybe you couple that with overwatering, which a lot of beginners growers tend to do. I mean, I've been growing forever and I still find myself overwatering sometimes. And then your plant is having trouble feeding, right? Due to the lack of oxygen. And if you let it dry back too fast, it's kind of a vicious cycle. Well, that's really cool though, focusing on the iron availability. You're saying it's there, it's just not ready for the plant to take up. So you want to have these
Yeah.
different processes in place, like adding specific microbes to unlock it and make it available.
Yeah. Micro Plus helps with solubility of some of those nutrients that are available at lower pH ranges because while you're watering, temporarily your solution pH is lower because of all the organic acids in the Micro Plus. And your soil pH will buffer that. It's not going to like have a negative impact, but for that short period of time, you're getting a higher solubility of those nutrients. So being able to hit it with a little bit of Micro Plus every other week helps with the solubility of those micronutrients, which it has an overall net positive impact on the quality and the yield.
Well, listen, man, we flew through an hour here. I have some more points, but we're going to have to save it. We'll save it for a GrowCast TV for the members. I want to get you on there as soon as possible. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you making time for my audience. They
Yep,
love to hear from you.
I got to do some gardening anyway.
You get to it, man. But before you go, where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Of course, BokashiEarthworks.com. Listeners, you can get 10% off, I believe, with code GrowCast. And then members of GrowCast membership getting 15% off. Appreciate that additional membership discount. Where can we find you other than BokashiEarthworks.com?
So you can find me on IG at rust.brandon and at Bokashi Earthworks, Facebook also. And then we also have the Bokashi Seed Vault website, which we just launched. We have some variety, some seeds on there. We have some clones on there. Those clones aren't going to be there for more than a couple days. So I don't know if the people that listen to this will even have a chance to scoop them, but I do drops on there periodically. Very exclusive. I'll do stuff that I find in pheno hunts. I'll release them like maybe once and then maybe twice, and then that's it. So if you can't get it, you can't get it. You got to find somebody that bought it and try to get it from them.
Do you want to get them on the email list? Do you send out an email when those drops go live?
Definitely. So if you want to sign up on our email, just go to our website and you can sign up for the newsletter right on the
Right on the webpage there. Yeah, you have some good content coming out. I'll see your Bokashi Earthworks recently coming in with some educational stuff and then a sale here there. That's good stuff, man. Newsletter's looking good.
Yep.
I guess that's why we're working on all these fancy charts and stuff. Keep doing your work, man. Listen, like I said, we appreciate you. You're kicking ass out there. Thank you for making time. And please come back again soon, okay?
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. That's all, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. GrowCastPodcast.com is where you can find us. It's where you can follow us. All of the things. It's all there. That's all for now. We'll catch you again soon. This is Brandon Rust and Jordan River signing off, saying be safe out there, everybody, and grow smarter. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, everybody. That is Brandon Rust at BokashiEarthworks.com. Use code GrowCast there. Come and see what we're doing at GrowCastPodcast.com. We have the membership. We have the seeds. Jump in membership, folks. It's $15 a month. You save so much. Discount on our seeds, discount on a whole variety of products, including Bokashi Earthworks. It's a really, really great place to be if you're not already in there. So jump in, and I hope to see you soon. Real quick before we go, the Natural Farming Immersive is our next big class. It is October 19th in Oklahoma. Very limited space on this one, guys. If you're thinking about a natural farming class this year, this is the one to come out and travel for. We're on OK Calix's property. We're going to be going in the woods and foraging and scavenging for different inputs. We're going to be making IMO and labs and liquid IMO and all through all the different steps and numbers. And he's going to do it in front of you guys. You can film the whole thing. We get to all be together and have lunch and, have a little camp out after and smoke up. It's going to be so much fun. There's only a dozen spots left. GrowCastPodcast.com/classes brings you right there. Grab your ticket now because they're going to sell out. It's October 19th. Grab your spot. It's in Oklahoma. It's going to be probably one of the best, most unique classes, certainly, we've ever done. So check it out right now before those spots are gone. And thank you to OK Calix for doing this awesome class. So cool to be working with this guy. So I'll see all you natural farming heads there. And then I'll also see you here 2 weeks from now. We're doing episodes every other week. The video project is coming along. We've got the studio up and running. We're doing video content for members, obviously, already. But we're just stockpiling some content and taking care of some other stuff. So by the end of the year, you'll be able to tune in video on this show. But you don't have to. You can keep listening right here on your podcast app. So don't worry about it. Go enjoy your garden. I love all of you listeners and especially you members. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Smells like hot dog water.